Hey everyone, my name is Samir Balu. I'm the Real Ideas Coordinator at the Toronto Real Asian International Film Festival. I'm an Indian Canadian man with medium length black hair, wearing a navy blue sweater, and sitting in an office chair in my apartment's living room. Welcome to CBC For New Kids on the Block, our sixth panel in our Real Ideas conference themed here in the future past. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that Real Asians offices and main activities are located on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat nations. This territory is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a treaty of collective responsibility for the protection and sharing of land and resources. As we continue with a digitally hosted festival that will screen Canada-wide, we encourage audiences to learn the specific histories and stories of the lands they are settled on. The lands of Treaty 11, many treaty agreements, and traditional unceded territories that continue to demand justice and to support the ongoing work of Indigenous leaders and communities. While acknowledging the festival's 25-year history of growth and challenge, we renew and refresh our commitments to more abundance and complexity in Asian and Asian diasporic film and media arts. Regardless of our pathways of arrival, we all currently benefit from the Canadian government's broken treaties and imposed violence, and reckon openly with our responsibility to this land and its caretakers. We name the ways we are complicit in structures of white supremacy, and also recognize that we are still in a time of great upheaval and need. We honor the longstanding work of organizers, creatives, and communities that continue to give us hope, language, and possibility, and work toward critical and reflexive allyship with Indigenous peoples exercising their sovereignty and working toward justice and freedom. For today's panel, we would like to thank the Ontario Cultural Attractions Fund, Ontario Creates, the Province of Ontario for their support, and of course to CBC for partnering with us on this panel. Just a reminder that if you're watching live from our watch portal and want to ask any questions, please send it in the chat or the ask a question box. If you're viewing from a phone, the chat will be at the bottom of the screen. Thank you so much to Carmelle and Emily, the amazing ASL interpreters in today's session. And thank you to Lori, our awesome live captioner. Lastly, we'd love to hear your feedback about our panels. Please visit realasian.com/RI surveys and let us know what you liked and what you'd like to see from us next year. We'll have the QR code posted up at the end with the survey. Each entry enters you in a draw to win a survey prize. We'll take a 5-minute break in the middle of the session for everyone to stretch their legs or grab some water. I'll now hand over the rest of the time to the amazing Kara, who will be introducing us to the rest of the panelists today.
Thank you so much, Samir. Great to be here with all of you today. Just to give you a little brief bio of me. My name is Harun. I was a TVO Kids host and producer. I've also produced and directed at YTV and write for several shows and direct as well. So that's just me in a nutshell. But now I get to introduce our lovely panelists as well. So when I say your name, maybe just give a brief wave so that everybody knows who I'm talking about. The first one I would like to introduce is Zach Feldberg. Zach is head of YA Digital Originals for CBC Gem, and with over a decade of experience pioneering the intersection of TV and digital, Zach Feldberg has navigated the content business from many different angles. At CBC, he oversees the YA Digital Originals strategy and programming team, developing and commissioning Gen Z targeted series for CBC Gem and branded social platforms. This slate includes such titles as The 410, For Heaven's Sake, Kenny and Spenny, Paul Demick, Next Stop, My 90-Year-Old Roommate, Save Me, The Nudos of Dujen Island, I hope I said that right, Coming In, the Emmy-nominated series The Amazing Gail Pyle, How to Buy a Baby, and many, many more. Welcome, Zach.
Thank you, Kara.
Next, we have Tony Kim, actor, producer, entertainer extraordinaire from CBC Kids. Tony is an actor, producer, entertainer from the small town of Vancouver, British Columbia. He's currently a host at CBC Kids and lends his voice talents to various animated series as well. Despite his parents' wishes of him becoming a doctor or lawyer, sorry, mom and dad, he loves that he's able to play for a living and is enjoying every step of journey through life. Welcome, Tony. Very cute bio as well. And now we have Marie McCann, Senior Director of Children's Content, CBC, who I also had the pleasure to work with a long time ago, it feels like now. Marie McCann is the Senior Director of Children's Content for CBC Kids. So Marie oversees development, production, acquisition, buoying the spirits of everyone, as well as in-house production on award-winning content for children from 2 to 13. And just to let you all know, CBC Kids creates and curates content for youth that entertains, informs, and inspires. And includes CBC TV, cbckids.ca, CBC Gem, and cbckidsnews.ca. So we'll be talking about these various platforms. Welcome, Marie. Oh, wait, you're muted, Marie. What'd you say?
Oh, sorry. I'm no longer muted. Thank you. Hi, Kara. Great to see you and nice to join everybody here. What an honor.
And thank you to everyone that has joined the panel as well as an audience. We are really looking forward to all your questions as well. But first, we are going to start off with our own questions, some broader topics, and then we can sort of narrow it down. So the first question I have is, what platform opportunities and programming streams are available within the CBC? So we'll start with Marie, if that's okay, and then
yeah. Okay, sure. Well, kind of like in the little bio thing that Kara read, CBC Kids is really making content for kids from 2 to 6 for television. That's our preschool stream. All that content that we do with independent producers, we also stream on CBC Gem. We have content for school age kids, 6 to 10 on cbckids.ca, daily digital content. Our kids news is daily digital as well. It's journalistic content for children. And then we do scripted shows for tweens in the 9 to 13 age range. Shows like Detention Adventure, which is one that we did in collaboration with Zach and his team. That's pretty exciting. And we're about to launch a new TikTok show for teenagers as well. It's unannounced. I'm not allowed to say the name, but it's pretty cool and we're very excited. So that's what we have. Those are our platforms. And
thank you for the insider intel as well, Marie. I love that. That's why we're here. Okay, Zach?
That was a scoop. Yeah, no, thank you. And I'm always, I've said this before, but I'm always grateful for the opportunity to talk about what we do, because I think that when you hear the term YA and when you hear the term digital, I think they can mean a lot of different things to different people and different organizations. So the only way really for us to get the word out about what it is that we do is through conversations like this and forums like this. So thank you for giving us the opportunity. I'll start with the YA part of it because it sort of flows really nicely from what Marie was just saying. I think, for us, the way that we think about YA is we think about it in 2 halves. And I think the first half is that sort of those years where you're getting a little bit older for, like, where you might feel like you're a little bit too old for kids content. And those years are probably going to be a little bit different depending on, you and your upbringing and where you're at. But we think of it as 13 to 17 broad strokes. When we think about that sort of entry level young adult audience, that's what we're thinking about in terms of who that audience is. We also think about 18 to 24, which again, for us, we call it new adult. It's still, our team is YA, that's what we do. But I think when we look at our development slate, it's very much split into those two halves. At this point, kind of 50-50, I think we're trying a lot of really interesting things on both sides of that spectrum. And a lot of these shows are going to start to come out in the next 6 months. So we're still a little bit in startup mode, but really excited about everything that's coming down the pipe, and excited to see what the response is on GEM, because to get into the format side of things, all of these shows will live on GEM. So that's a unique thing about our team, and that's where the digital part comes in. For us, it's really about trying to reach this audience, which, 13 to 24, give or take, through a streaming service that, is still relatively new. It's a few years old, but from a young adult perspective, it's brand new. It's not something that we've been really building towards until recently. So so that's the sort of general sort of state of the union with what we're doing. Most of what we do is shorter format, which I won't get too deep into now because it's such a rabbit hole, but generally under 20 minutes per episode, 6 to 8 episodes a season. There are exceptions to that, but again, I don't want to go too deep just yet. So that's generally what we do. And importantly, I'll also just add before we move on, our team is part of the scripted unit. So I report to Trish Williams, who's the head of scripted. Our team is quite small. So my colleague, Melanie Lee Fan, is executive in charge of production, who also works on Detention Adventure that Marie just mentioned. And our coordinator is Carmen Chung. So that's our team. And we, like to think that we're able to do a lot with the resources that we have and with our small team, and really excited about what's to come. So thanks for having us.
3 people. Yeah, that is a small team, Zach. For as much amazing stuff as is coming out of CBC GEM, that's really quite incredible.
Cool.
And also already so fascinating to hear the different buckets and how age groups are divided at the CBC. I feel like that's something that's changed recently as well.
It has. Thanks. Yeah, it has changed very recently. It's brand new terrain, and it's like I said, it's startup mode. It's let's try stuff, let's see what happens, and see where we can reach that audience. So yeah, more to come on that. But
exciting time to be alive.
Totally.
But especially in content, it really, really is. Okay, so let's dive into slightly. So let's go shallow pool, because this is a very big topic. What type of funding is available? Again, we'll start with Marie on the in-house side for the younger demographic. And then what's the development process? 2 parts. What's the development process for emerging creators?
Okay, so you're looking, and I'm gonna just frame it a bit. I assume we're looking at what kind of funding's available for development, right? Startup.
Yeah, frame it with development. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, we run a pretty robust development as well in the kids unit for preschool content and for tween. And we're on the lookout for amazing, authentic voices. We're looking for great creative, either animated series or live action series. Same thing in tween. We really want to see something new and unique. And so for that reason, we really pay attention when we're seeing creators we haven't met before. We want to, even if the project isn't right, we'll often try to meet people as much as possible. When we do have an emerging creator, we can bring funding to the table to help put small development together. It can range from, a small Bible development where we're working with you on your concept, getting a Bible together that helps us see the scope of the show, to, being able to fund a couple of scripts. We generally do it in steps. Especially with animation, we find it takes several levels of development. So we might do a secondary level where we could bring in educators, we could bring in story editors, we can fund design. And as shows get a little further along, we've done things like, sometimes helped with casting or done pretty substantial demos. So it can be a great way to get materials to a good place and really understand what we're doing,
Totally. And I'm assuming it just depends on where the creator, like what stage that creator's at, and then what they bring it to you at, right?
Yes, absolutely. And, sometimes the process is as much about getting to know the creatives that we're working with and them getting to know us. Does it make sense? Does it work? And in that process, we can also sometimes help get people connected to other producers, executive producers, or companies that can help them. If they're emerging, they don't often have all the infrastructure or the hard business acumen. And we can help with that if we really believe in the project and we really think it's viable.
Wonderful. That's very positive news to hear for first-time creators, because I know out there it can seem very intimidating and daunting, thinking about any steps, even starting it sometimes. So that's great to hear. What about from you, Zach? What's the general process for you when you're dealing with a first-time creator?
It's very similar, to the point where, I don't know if I have too much to add outside of what Marie said. I mean, I think we are looking for talent at all levels of experience. So I think sometimes that means that someone may have never even so much as approached a production company before and is just a writer with some brilliant ideas, and is, maybe is in a session like the one we're having today and thinks, oh, I could approach this person, but hasn't sort of thought about all the other pieces that they might bring to the table. And that's fine. Like we still want to have that conversation. The next conversation, if we're interested and we think that it fits with, the slate that we're building and the way that we're hoping to reach an audience, would probably be, have you thought about a production company? And are there people that you think you could work with on this? But, by the same token, we've also met with many people who come in the door with all of those pieces already attached and a really good sense of what the package looks like, right down to people in front of the camera, behind the camera. It really runs the gamut. And I think from our perspective, there's no right or wrong way to do it. I think ultimately we're looking to work with talent, and no matter what level of sort of establishment they might be by the time that they knock on our door. So yeah, pretty similar. I think it's no two are alike, but always open to a conversation.
Sounds like the Wild West, but slightly more friendly.
Very friendly. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. They're friendly, everybody. Tony, let's get you in here. Is that a cat? Is that a very fluffy cat?
Yes, just in time for my part, you little weasel.
I love that.
It's Monsieur Moufette. Oh!
Good timing, but don't work with them on camera.
Exactly.
So Tony, what's been your experience as a first-time creator at CBC Kids, from an idea and then execution on camera?
Ooh, good question. I'm still fairly new to this whole industry. I'm still learning the ins and outs. I feel like I started very similar to where you started, Kara, with the hosting and leaning into the production side of everything. It's a very interesting experience being able to shadow professionals who've done this for so long. And I am not trained as a writer, not trained as a producer or any of that. But I've gained very valuable experience over the last 5 years that I've been here. And it's amazing to see where the seed gets planted all the way to the fruition of everything, when everything's being shot on set. It's a magic that is very hard to encapsulate in any other way. And yeah, through that process, I've been able to develop my skills as a writer producer as well. And I feel like it's just It's just good experience. I don't really know what else to say other than learning is the key to everything. And if you stop learning, then what else is there to do? Learning is what I strive for all the time.
That's really nice, just life advice, Tony. But
Yeah.
I also think I love that idea. The word that you used is seed, which I think and something that both Zach and Marie have touched on is that there are various stages that you can be at in order to approach a CBC and to approach, anyone really with ideas and bringing them into fruition. So that's great insight, Tony.
Yeah, and when I first, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, when I first started, it was definitely a very daunting task. Again, with absolutely no knowledge about anything that had to do with the field. I came in very fresh. CBC has been extremely accommodating and have been very conducive to learning and understanding a lot more about it. So yeah, I'm just going to reinforce the fact that any knowledge level, any skill level is very game for this industry, really.
That's wonderful. Do you see Marie? He said nice things.
He did. The check is in the mail. No, Tony.
I'm not fired yet.
Tony's a massive talent. Like, we're so lucky to have him as part of our team. Kids love him. One of the things he's doing, in addition to performing and producing, he does live classroom visits with kids, where he's teaching them how to create video games. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff he does, and it's really amazing. He's really, really great.
That sounds wonderful. I love the school visits. Okay, so the next question I have is, looking at your current slate, what are the executives and programmers at the CBC looking for that's different from what you currently have? And I'll start with Zach this time.
Okay, sounds good. I mean, yeah, I touched on the demographic thing. I think for us, that's a good starting point, just in that it is so distinctly different from what our colleagues on the comedy team are doing and the drama team on the older side, and then and certainly with what Marie's team is doing on the kids side. So I think the first sort of lens that we would look at things through is, do we think it will reach this elusive young adult audience that we're trying to reach? And if so, then that's a good sign that maybe it's the kind of thing you would bring to our team. I think on the older end in particular, it gets a little bit blurrier, where it's sort of like, well, is this like a young millennial thing or an older Gen Z thing? I don't know. And I would say, when unsure, please feel free to just reach out. And that's, I think, sort of a gut check thing that we can do internally and say, does this align more with some of the stories and some of the slate that's being built on the TV primetime, linear side, or is it something that maybe we could look at as a shorter format, quote unquote YA digital original? So, I think sometimes it's not crystal clear. Sometimes it really is, though. And it's sort of, I think when it is, that's one of the most exciting things to us, is just sort of, this is so clearly a smart, progressive, Gen Z oriented story that is unlike anything we've seen, which of course is the easy answer, is like, show us something we haven't seen before. But just something that, speaks to the many identities of a Gen Z audience. And I think the thing that you realize, and the more you get sort of into what this audience is watching, streaming becomes like a self-exploration process for a lot of young viewers, where it's sort of, seeing themselves reflected, but then wanting to participate in that and wanting to create memes and have conversations and really sort of see themselves, and then see themselves inhabited in that story in whatever way that they might choose to do so. And I think there's something really powerful about that, but it only works if it's, a very special type of story and character that is very specific and very authentic and told from a voice of authority. So those are all things that come up when we have our weekly development meetings and look at the things that have been pitched in the past week and think, do we think it will connect with this, again, elusive audience that we're trying to reach, that has endless choice and so much they could do with their time? And between gaming and, of course, Netflix and short form content on YouTube and everywhere else. So what is it that's going to make them say, actually, I should check Gem as well and see what's happening over there? And I think that's kind of the challenge that's before us. So if some of the keywords that I threw out there resonate, I would say those are some of the big things that come up for us. And so much of that boils down to discoverability. And how do you create awareness that A, we're doing this and building up this library of young adult content, and B, that it might be interesting to you, and it might be just the thing you're looking for in your media diet, whatever that might look like. So I think, you know, I know sort of speaking in generally like more broad terms there, but that is sort of, you know, if that's a way to answer what's missing, what we're looking for, what's different, I think that's the way that we think about it in a distinct way for YA series.
No, I think you hit on something really interesting as well, Zach, of you're creating content for content creators as well. This generation is something that none of us have been before, which is there's a lot of power in that. So I think it is good to think of them as elusive and think about making your voice for the project genuine, because if it's not, they're going to see it right through that and choose to stream something else. Okay, thanks so much for that insight. Thanks. What about you, Marie, on the younger demographic side? What are you looking for that's different, or what helps your gut check when you're looking at a project?
Well, a lot of what we have, like if you want to talk about preschool for a second, a lot of what we have online right now or on television, it's kind of looking up at the night sky and seeing the star. The star projected like how many billions of light years ago, the light that you're seeing. An animated series was delivered maybe 12, 24 months ago. It took 18 to 24 months to create. Development was maybe 3 to 5 years. So a lot of the times when you finally see an animated series, it's something that was conceived 5-10 years ago. It's an extremely conservative medium that way. And we're up against, like Zach was saying, you know, obviously the new non-traditional platforms. YouTube has a whole plethora of stars, shows like CoComelon, Blippi, things that really bypass traditional broadcasters that were made very quickly and inexpensively. And creators, like you were saying as well, Kara. So really, you know, how do you do that? How do you make that and anticipate what a kid who isn't even born yet is going to want to watch in 3 to 5 years, right? So there's I think one place you have to start is knowing kids, knowing their developmental stages, what they need, you know, what the latest things in media are. But there are some things that don't go away. And I think you really need a good grounding in that. But also, especially more than ever, we need authentic voices, creating content. We can't have corporate made children's content. That's not going to work for us. We need stuff that's really authentic. A series that we're launching in December is called Big Blue. We're super excited about it. We partnered with Guru Studios, and we had a pitch from this fantastic creator, Jima Gariba, who's an animator at Guru. And we're totally blown away by his vision. He had this idea about these kids, a brother and sister who live in an underwater planet, and they're basically there to help, you know, take care of their family, take care of the other creatures on the planet. It's a story about survival and about us all caring for each other. It came from a very organic place. And we were so fortunate to be able to hook up with them. You know, it was about a 5-year journey, but it's launching now, right? And, you know, some of those themes are still really important. So it's a trick between knowing what's current, but also knowing what isn't going to go away for kids, I think.
Wow. Do you need a crystal ball in your audience or in your office by any chance?
Yeah, for sure.
Like a little bit of a peek into the future.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. And I love how you touched on knowing what works, developmental. I just, in the summer, helped develop a preschool show, and it is so complex to do, because you have to understand, you're right, what they know and what you want to teach them in this show and then the process, which it's quite hard to do. um, I'm gonna posit a question for Tony, and you can come back to it. You can think about it, but I would love to know something or a few things that you've seen, whether it's on the web or TV wise, that have been like an example of something different that sparked your imagination recently. You can think about that one and I can come back to you. Yeah, okay.
Sounds good.
All right. The next question is, how is CBC being proactive in their search for racialized filmmakers and creators who have opted to create outside the traditional formats? We've talked about this a little bit, but do you actively search out non-traditional platform creators? And when I say that, I mean just not usually TV, like online, anything social. Let's start with Zach.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that is so central to what we do. And, I think from our perspective, it's not the only way to discover talent. And we're happy to sort of take a pitch at the script stage or a one pager, but there have been a few really rewarding experiences for our team where we have observed a show or a group of writers and actors doing their own thing, on YouTube or somewhere else, and getting an incredible response, and just sort of thinking like, okay, well, does it make sense for us to be part of this? Because sometimes you want to leave it where it is. Sometimes it's like, this is succeeding over there and there's a reason for that, and it should stay there and it should continue to flourish. Or is there something that could we step in and potentially offer development and say, we'd love to help you make another season of this at a larger scale? And we've done that a couple times, and two recent examples are Next Stop. Season 1 was self-published and produced on YouTube. I think it came out like 3 years ago originally, and then did great. And the comments were, very excited and very engaged, and a story about an anthology series. So at the time it was 4 episodes, each episode a different group of actors telling stories about just living as Black youth in Toronto, and very just funny and charming and surprising, and just an energy that we hadn't really been exposed to. And I think as we got to know the creators, Jabari Weeks and Tashawn Depambwa and Phil Whitmer, we realized they made it for that very reason. They felt like it didn't exist. They wanted to see this depicted on screen, so they went and did it. So we acquired season 1, again, fully self-produced. We had nothing to do with it, and put it on Gem, left the original season on YouTube, and then worked with that team and with the producer Amar Walla and Scarborough Films, who had introduced us to the show to begin with, and put that team together. And they developed and then eventually produced season 2, which came out on Gem about 5 weeks ago or something, and about a year after we had released season 1 on Gem. So that was such a cool story, just because it felt like we were able to add value, but in no way wanted to get in the way of their unique vision for that series. And that was very important to us as well. And, it's working. Let's just let them continue to do what they're doing, but, hopefully for a wider audience on Gem. So that was one good example. And another is a very different one, but a series called Frick, I Love Nature, that was originally supported by TELUS Fund and possibly other funds. So I apologize if I'm missing any, but one that, we fell in love with immediately. And, Stephen Robinson and Gordy Lucis, who's the host. Gordy is the host, if anyone's not familiar with Frick, I Love Nature. A very funny and strange, he's playing a character as sort of a nature enthusiast who's also kind of afraid of nature and afraid of being in it, but reluctantly interviews professionals and goes out into the wild and meets with the animals. And, it's a really special show. And they had done this on YouTube for a while. And I know TELUS had put it elsewhere as well with the TELUS funded first season. And then again, we got on board later and are now in progress on season 2, which we'll have more to announce on that one soon as well. But both of them, untraditional formats, untraditional platforms. And ultimately, if we feel like we could see this growing and thriving on GEM, then it's a connection that we're going to be interested in making.
Very cool to hear about various stages and, buying something that was off of YouTube and then leaving it on YouTube, which I think is really interesting too, because then you get that audience coming to you for season 2, which I think is really smart. Marie, as well, same question for racialized creators who create outside of traditional formats. How do you go in search of them, or what's that process for you like?
Well, I think part of that is just keeping up on those non-traditional formats. Who's out there? What are they making? What are the trends? Certainly TikTok we're reaching, or we're in peak TikTok. That is, it's really kind of where I think where YouTube was 4 or 5 years ago in terms of being the creator-led movement. So that's really where you go to find emerging creators. We're like I said earlier, we're realizing teens are on third-party platforms like TikTok, YouTube, obviously. And yeah, we're going there for casting, looking for producers, finding out what people are doing. That's definitely where you can go to find things. In the teen, I would say in sort of upper school age and teen area, it's not necessarily where we're finding preschool as much. That tends to be a bit more focused on, I'd say, YouTube.
That's what I was just going to ask, is
Yeah.
do you find them more on YouTube?
Yeah, especially with the YouTube app, which keeps kids, which is a little safer than broader YouTube, right?
Okay, interesting. Marie just scrolling through TikTok all day. Just kidding.
All day. Hey.
Okay, and I'd like to ask another question. What does the future of kids programming look like here in Canada for both of you? Actually, for all 3 of you, I'll go to Zach first, if that's okay.
Well, we'll reverse engineer it. So I won't speak too much to kids, just that not being the domain. But really, for us, we're in this interesting world that is a split between, YA, digital original, short form, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I think we've weathered a few storms from a format perspective because, Quibi came and went, and a number of other platforms, Go90, Vessel before it, there have been a lot of short form platforms that have sprung up and gone away. I think we're very fortunate in that we program short form content for younger audiences into GEM, which is a much bigger thing than what we do, and houses content for all different demographics. So I think what's really cool about that is that it lets us program strategically for an audience that's already there, and it doesn't put all the pressure on like, oh, I hope this short form platform works. And I think that's what a lot of other platforms are doing. So again, just speaking to format, which I see there's a question about that as well. If we do a short form series and program it as a comedy, as long as the content dictates form and it genuinely should be whatever format it winds up being, quarter hour, 10-minute episode, maybe 6 to 8 episodes per season. That's usually where we are for the most part. And it feels natural in that. It feels like that is what it's supposed to be. Then that is success for us. So I think that's big for us. And I think from a YA perspective, just quickly shifting in the demographic, I think that feels like an opportunity for us as well, and trying to authentically and genuinely reach young adults in Canada on this platform. I think there's a gap, and I think it's something that we feel like, you know, we're in a good position to help fill. So I'll sum it up there, but that's what we're thinking.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much, Zach. Marie, same question. What do you think the future?
Future, well, I mean, I'm going to say future present state, you know, if that's a cheat. I would say international. I think there's so much international content that is now available for kids. Squid Games, hello, like there is, you know, they're growing up, even in preschool, they're growing up with animation from right around the world, and it's not. I don't think it's. I don't think it's going to be as gated as it once was. I think, you know, with all the streaming platforms, with the availability of content, really on YouTube, frankly, for the youngest kids, they have so much choice. So it's not, it certainly doesn't look like your Saturday morning cartoons when there were 5 programs that somebody at CHCH picked. It's we're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
That's great. Thank you so much, Marie. I love that. I love your keywords, international and not gated. Just sometimes probably scarier for a broadcaster, but at the same time, gotta go with the flow. Tony, what about you? How do you see, as somebody in the industry, the landscape sort of changing?
I'm going to double down on what Marie said about international. In fact, just before this conversation began, I was hosting the video game How to Make Video Games with 5th graders, and a lot of them were talking about their favorite anime, which was something that completely blew me away. They were watching Japanese content all the way over here, and they were locked in. It was something that they were passionate about. It wasn't just a phase. So the landscape, honestly, it's the Wild West, as you said before. Anything can happen. TikTok is such an interesting platform. I got on TikTok 3 years ago, and that was when people were recording with their cell phones in high school, and they were developing really, really cool, engaging content. And I can only imagine what kind of new possibilities that could bring up nowadays. So the answer is I don't really know, but it's exciting. It's a positive direction for sure.
It's definitely a cool time to be streaming interesting content for everybody all around and to be in the content game as well. Okay, I think we are going to take a short break. I'm not sure. I think it's a 5 to 10, just so everybody can take a little bio break, get a glass of water if they need. And then we are going to continue the discussion. Sorry, 5 minutes then. So we'll come back in 5 and then we'll answer some more questions. If you have questions, you can also put them in the chat. Okay, so everybody, we will see you in 5 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you stretched your legs, which is important when you've been sitting on Zoom all day, as I'm sure some of you have, which I definitely have as well and need to stretch more. Okay. We're going to be answering some of your questions now. So I'm going to start at the top. And we've mentioned also funding, which is a big thing in Canada. If you don't know about it, we have the CMF, we have TELUS. There's Ontario Creates is a really good resource. If you're looking for some answers, they are very, very helpful. They will actually take your calls. So that's another great resource, but it's a whole other thing that we can't get too deep into. But this first question is, can you speak to whether you greenlight pitches at the CMF pre-development stage? So I'm assuming this question has to do with the pre-development money, that envelopes that are given out. So that's to both of you. Zach, do you want to start with that one?
Yeah, I mean, so our process is fairly untethered from the CMF development envelope process at CBC. I think we're a little bit more independent of that. We have a content budget that we use. The expectation on our team is we'll use that budget to help get development going. So a little bit more sort of in-house, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it. I think there are exceptions. Occasionally we'll get involved with, the envelope in some way if it makes sense. More often though, it's sort of, we want to be sort of nimble and be able to sort of move into development and then do so with some of the production funding deadlines in mind, which, roll up every few months as well. So we're a little bit more fluid that way. So, never say never, but generally that's our approach is a bit more of a, we see the pitch, we think it's a candidate for development, we put it into development and then sort of see, come what may, see where it goes. There are, in 2 weeks, there's a Bell Fund slate development deadline. We'll be looking at that. We're getting a lot of pitches where people are asking for our support, going into it. So that could happen, but I would say percentage-wise, it's a relatively small percentage of the way that we put things into development. Otherwise, it's just, a little bit more organic.
Oh, great to know. Marie, is it similar on your side or?
Yeah, I would say it's very similar. We're reluctant to put something, to support something unless it's a project or creator that we've been tracking already and have an intention to put into development, just like Zach said.
Okay, great. Good to know. What time of year would you recommend producers approach you with pitches?
When they're ready, I would say. It's a year-round process for sure. There's going to be a moment, if you show up with pitches and we're going to say, we're full up, we've already got our green lights for the year. But honestly, I think, a lot of the kids industry is kind of works on cycles around getting pitches ready for Kids Screen and also for MIP Junior. Those are big times when lots of projects get ready and evaluated at the same time. Our green lights generally for production happen, we prepare them in the fall and really are vetting them through the winter time. Our fiscal year starts in April. So there is a cycle there, but honestly, we are looking at things year round.
And I'm assuming same for you, Zach, as well.
It is. Yeah, it really is. And, I touched on this in my last response, but, the digital funds are the lifeblood of what we do. So I think, we're so fortunate in this country that there are so many funds that support shorter formats or, unusual formats. And again, they're usually under 20 minutes, but the projects that we develop year round are always geared towards those funds. So the hope is, a deadline is creeping up, maybe it's a month away, and let's say it's the Bell Fund deadline coming up in the spring. And then, my team, Mel and I would start looking at, okay, what do we think is in a place where, we want to see it sort of move into that next step where it's going after that financing with one of these funds. And at that point, we call it a creative green light. It's essentially, we want to see this get made, but this is the beginning of the financing journey, and on it goes, and trying to apply to this fund and that fund and put together a number of, different pieces to sort of link all of those together. So again, not to get too deep into it, but that's just a window into our process. And as a result, we're just always developing year round, and there's no bad time. Sometimes we're busier than others, so we might be slower to look at it, but always just looking for new pitches when you're ready to share them with us.
Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. The next question you sort of touched on a bit, Zach, anyway, but it was, can you speak to duration? It seems like YA on GEM are quite short. What is the format you're most looking for? There's no real answer to that, right?
We develop with the most likely path to production in mind. So, and again, based on what I've been saying, it's sort of, a lot of these funds require the projects to be under 20 minutes. And from a budget perspective, that usually means, it's got to be 6 to 8 episodes, because ultimately it'll wind up being like 60, 70 minutes of content total. So whether it's carved up into a perfect 7 or 8 episodes, or whether some are a little longer, we're not that concerned about, just because we're not, worried about the ad clock on TV. Ultimately, it's just got to feel like the right amount of story in the episode. So we're pretty flexible on that front. And then from there, it's pretty flexible. I guess the one exception I'll just mention, because there are a few shows out there that are under our domain that totally break all of the rules I just said, are series that have a partner outside of Canada. So we recently announced a series called Fakes. That's a 10-part half hour that is in partnership with Netflix. So, I don't think you'd see us do a series like that independently of a partner outside, like a non-domestic streaming service. And, that'll happen maybe once a year. It was a series that was developed at CBC and then went on to attract that interest in the US, which is great. And we'll have a much bigger platform internationally. And again, that's fantastic. Earlier this year, there was a series called For Heaven's Sake that followed a fairly similar path, and premiered on Paramount Plus in the US and internationally, and then on GEM in Canada. And the year before would have been Utopia Falls, and that was with Hulu. The year before that, Origami, I always say Gammy, Origami, and that was with the CW. So every so often, something finds that sort of interest, in the US or elsewhere, and the budget gets that much bigger. And again, it's great for everybody. But the main sort of, I'd say 90% plus of our development slate is geared towards those shorter format funds, because we know that that's the thing that, we can, help move the needle on more than some of the other things.
Totally. I think now more than ever, it's about finding what you're good at, what the niche of what you're doing is, right? And it's really interesting to hear you guys talk about how you go on the journey of the development the funding journey with some of these creators, because it is a lonely journey sometimes. So it's nice to hear about that sort of support that you're giving. This one's we'll pass it off to Marie. I've heard that CBC doesn't focus on educational TV for kids anymore. The focus is now entertainment. Can you speak to that?
If I unmute myself, yes. Yeah, I would say really our mission for CBC Kids is to entertain, inform, and enlighten. That puts us more in line with the rest of CBC. That's really where we're coming from, rather than a specific curriculum-focused mandate. A place like TVO, for example, very much is rooted in curriculum-based content. Well, it's still very entertaining, but there's a much more baked connection with teachers and curriculum. But CBC Kids, definitely on the informing side, we have a lot of content that has a lot of connections to schools. Our CBC Kids News, for example, is used in the classrooms as is cbckids.ca. We get huge spikes from schools using it. Tony can attest as well how many teachers are using our digital content as resources. Shows like Molly of Denali, that's a series that we co-produced with PBS and WGBH. That was actually a specific curriculum focus on informational text and learning, as well, of course, as on Indigenous culture. That, you know, that's an example of something, but we don't have a hard rule. We are looking for really engaging content for kids with strong values. We hope they'll be learning from story and character, as well as from, you know, the different aspects of it. But we're not flogging math.
They're not against it.
Correct.
Right? Yes, exactly. Yeah. So we've sort of touched on this a bit, but traditionally gatekeepers at the CBC haven't been diverse, or it hasn't always looked like as diverse a community as it does now. So can you sort of speak a little bit more on who makes the decisions about the diverse stories, how you, like, what kind of filter you go through, and, you know, how that represents more of our population? Do you want to start with that, Zach, just briefly?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could speak to it in great detail, other than to say that, you know, I think the scripted team particularly, which is the team that I'm on, has radically changed in the past year, and is an extremely diverse group of people. And I think that, you know, to the extent that we feel equipped to, you know, be the point people on these series, depending on what the subject matter is and the stories that are being covered, I think that that's something that, you know, we feel good about knowing where our strengths are, and then perhaps knowing where it might need another set of eyes and another perspective, you know, from an executive perspective. So, you know, without going into too many specifics, I think that the team itself is in a place where a lot of different perspectives are represented. I think there's always room for growth, but I also think that there's been a lot of change internally. And I think also, you know, more recently, from an external production standpoint, some initiatives have been announced to make sure that the productions that we work with externally are held to a standard of, you know, a certain expectation and requirement, actually, from you know, a diversity perspective for Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, people with disabilities, you know, working in key creative roles on shows, and that includes, you know, in front of the camera, behind the camera, and, you know, and the expectation, and again, requirement, is that it's at least 30%. So I think that that is, you know, one of many initiatives, I think, that are, you know, helping the organization get to where it strives to be. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if that covers the full breadth of the question, but I guess that's, you know, that's,
no, that's okay. I feel like it's a hard question. And like, speaking as somebody also who's been in writing rooms or in production within the last couple of years, like even within 2 years, I've seen changes happening. Mm-hmm. So it happens, like now it feels like it's happening quicker, but the needle has been starting to move for a very long time, which is nice to see. This question, I'm gonna say it out loud. I feel like it's, does you looking to YouTube for producers and new content speak to a problem with development and acquisition process from independent producers? I think that's a little, I mean, I personally, and I'd love to hear what you all think. I think it's just that everything is changing so rapidly that the very notion of the acquisition process and producing content in general has changed. So it's sort of like everybody's looking at everything, including co-producing. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? It feels like a bit of a loaded question, but.
Well, I'd love to know what you think, like what you're seeing as a problem, like as a producer, or I don't know if you're coming from production or distribution. But I'd love to hear what you're perceiving as a problem. Because I would agree with Kara. Like, I think we're looking for talent. I think we're looking for people to work with in all of the places. Like, we review in the children's department, we're extremely occupied with the job of reviewing content and meeting with people over 1,000 pitches a year easily. Last year, when we had the CRF project, which added additional, I think we reviewed 900 alone for CRF. I hope I didn't make that up. If I did, I will try to send you the right number back, but it was a big number. So we spend a lot of time through traditional development means as well. I don't want you to think we're sitting there, as Kara tried to start the rumor. We're not sitting there on TikTok all day. We are, we're at all the festivals, we're meeting people. This is our job. We're immersed in this content all the time. But if you see a problem, like if there's something that I'm not seeing, I would love to hear what you have to say.
Please, by all means, whoever asked that question, you can maybe like specify a little more. I mean, if the question is on diversity as well, I think what's starting to happen, and I mean, I feel like being in the kids industry, I've seen it happen in the earlier, like in preschool and other places where diversity has been supported a lot more than in older demographics. But I think what everybody's going to see is a slew of content coming out from diverse creators. It's just things take a while to develop, and the changes have been happening over time. But again, if that person wants to specify more, please do so. Oh, this is an interesting question. Either Marie or Zach. With the rise of international content like Squid Game, do you think we'll be seeing more non-English content being made in Canada? Because obviously that was, non-English content made offshore. So.
Well, that's a great question. I mean, surely we've got there's a history in Canada, obviously in an amazing industry in French already. And also there's content being made or created or dubbed in Indigenous languages, which is very exciting. But I don't know, Zach, have you heard of any languages outside of that happening in Canada?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm trying to think of an example where it's, 100% in another language. I know that even using a CBC Gem example where the 410 has, Punjabi dialogue. And I think that's something that we certainly would never shy away from. And again, we keep using the word authentic. I mean, we would never ask a character to somehow betray what the truth of that character is by not speaking in their native tongue. So I think we are very open to it and creating engaging, engrossing worlds and want that to feel real and want that to feel lived in. So, I'd love to think of an example in, Canadian media somewhere that's doing something where it's like fully in another language. But I do think there's an appetite for it. I could say that. And would love to, we could take a look at it anytime.
You know what's odd? I just realized I am working on a show that is in half another language.
Right.
So if you look at Rogers and Omni and stuff that they're doing, that is actually starting to happen. I had a brain fart.
No, it's perfect.
So it is happening. But also I would encourage that person as a creator, you can always write in English and say it's going to be translated if you want to get across your idea. I think, why not? It's the Wild West. So next question is for Tony. What recommendations do you have for folks looking to break into TV hosting? Should they be doing anything to improve skills, getting your face out there? What would any of you do? But specifically Tony, because you're the host here.
Fair enough. I hope this isn't a cop-out answer because I feel like being an actor or a TV host is just being a professional human being. It's just being yourself. It's just you doing you. And as for learning different skills and improving, I think that should be a never-ending quest for humans in general. I always strive to improve and learn new things. When I was very fortunate to be cast at for CBC Kids for an audition. That audition was me just being 100% unfiltered me, and that's what was, I guess, alluring about me. That's why I'm so great. But but it it's interesting because all of your skills and things that you've learned in your life all come together. I remember on set during our show, there would be times where we would need some music, and I'd say, "Hey, I know how to play the ukulele a little bit. I know how to play the piano." So it's all these tiny little details that you bring to yourself as a kind of character in that sense, but basically it's just learning, constant development, constant learning, and just being yourself. I know it sounds like a really cheesy, like Disney kind of thing that I'm saying, but I think it's really true. It's just being yourself is the key.
Tony's advice: become a better person. I love it. No, I'm teasing, but I'm not. Like, becoming a well-rounded person in TV production. Tony, speaking on that, I used to, I'm a musician and I used to do music videos at TVO, and now I'm
Yeah.
directing one for another job, and we're doing some music live off the floor, which I've done as well. So it's like those skills you never know, even though you're like, I'm never going to use that again. So
Exactly. And once you're in it, you still don't have to stop. Right now I'm taking singing lessons even though I have the voice of a choking goat. And it's still a really fun journey, and hopefully I don't sound terrible the next time I'm on a screen. So every moment should be a learning opportunity.
Tony, I think the choking goat could be a great CBC Kids character right there. Like, um, that's great. Thank you for your insight, Tony. And I would also say, getting out, I hate to be this person, but upping your social media game is always good, because as you've heard from these producers, they're actually looking at social media, and not all day, Marie. I should have not made that joke, but it's a source, because it's an easy way for someone to go, oh, you're verified, but you're actually verified. You verifiably, there's something about you that people are gravitate towards. So it's an easy filter for producers to make, and it only helps you. So social media is a good thing if you want to get into becoming a personality or actor. This one is much of the, I don't know how true this is, but we're going to put it out there. Much of the CBC Kids slate is from non-Canadiana producers. Shouldn't CBC have a mandate to pursue Canadian stories first? An example is CBC has no Canadian Inuit series that we know of in production, but airing Molly of Denali out of Alaska. Sorry, I'm hitting you with all the hard questions.
That's okay. No, I'm happy to answer these questions. Yeah, like CBC, we do have a mandate to work with Canadian producers. In fact, we think we do champion Canadian producers through development and through our productions or co-productions. We have a small amount of American or foreign content. It could be British or Australian that we do have on CBC Kids to help supplement our hours and for audiences, but really our focus is on Canadian produced or co-produced shows. Molly of Denali is a Canadian co-production. As I mentioned earlier, that we got in there, WGBH came to us. They felt that to make a series like this, they would need Canadian partners. Atomic Cartoons out of Vancouver created the beautiful landscape in Molly of Denali. And so many of the performers in that series and a lot of the writers are Canadian. We do, by the way, we did not commission it, but we acquired a Nana's tent. which we have on CBC Gem, which is an Inuit series. And we have that as well in, I think, several languages. So we do have that as well. But yeah, our focus is to champion Canadian creators like Jima Gariba, Matt Fernandez from Industrial Brothers. That's a Canadian company. We've got Dino Ranch, which is a series that we've co-produced. Have you written for that, Kara? Are you one of the writers on that? She got the fist pump.
Our episode is hilarious.
That's, you know, like, this is beautiful animation company that we're working with. You know, we do, and we produce in-house. We don't have, you know, like any child, you know, you're gonna, of course you want them. We're here to create Canadian culture for kids. That's what we're here to do. And that's really our mandate. But just like with any child, you know, you're gonna feed them, you know, local food, but they're also gonna taste food from other places. So we, you know, we're bringing content together for them. I hope that answers your question.
No, I think it's a great insight, Marie. A little bit behind the curtain of, I think the word you use is commissions versus co-productions as well. And understanding, or trying to understand, there's a limited, we have limited resources.
Oh my goodness.
In Canada. So like,
yeah,
we're all stretching it like a dirty piece of gum that ends up becoming a much better piece of gum, and we clean it up, but it's like, it's so difficult. So yes,
stretching gum. That's a beautiful, I love that analogy. But Kara's just explained it. I mean, part of the thing here, you know, is leveraging, you know, partnerships with other broadcasters like ABC Australia, for us to compete with content, especially animated content from around the world. You know, we believe that kids around the world want to hear Canadian stories. And we know Canadian kids want to hear, you know, stories from stories that are amazing, and that, you know, it takes a lot of money to create animation. So yeah, a lot of the time there has to be multiple partners. It's not always cut and dry.
Yeah, no, that's very well said, Marie. I think it's hard to see from the outside sometimes how the whole industry works, which is why panels like these are amazing. Thank you so much for that. The next question I have is for Zach. How does CBC fit into the YA digital original space next to HBO Max / Warner at Netflix? You sort of talked briefly about a couple of projects that were
yeah, I saw this question. I wonder if the question might be about, you know, how do we see ourselves as competitors or as complementary to the types of YA content that, you know, is surfacing on those platforms, because both are doing amazing work in that space. And of course, one, not to steal the thunder of Marie and the kids team, but Detention Adventure is also on HBO Max. Super cool. And, you know, again, it helps it reach a wider audience. So we love when things like that happen, but they're also doing many more. And again, just to be clear, Detention Adventure, more of a tween thing. And the question is about YA and what we're doing. So I'll focus it on that primarily. But yeah, they both have incredible resources, both of these platforms, and they're delivering a lot of YA content, very, you know, bigger budget YA content and high quality content on a regular basis, and cultivating these audiences. They, you know, have these great presences on, you know, TikTok. And again, it's sort of reaching that audience in a really novel way. So we love what they're doing. And, you know, I don't think at any point will we say we're trying to compete, but I think there is an opportunity to be very complementary in terms of the types of stories that we're bringing to screens that those platforms may not. Now, I say that immediately following what I said, you know, not 10 minutes ago about working with Netflix on a longer form, you know, half-hour series. And again, that'll be an amazing opportunity for CBC Gem to reach, you know, a bigger YA audience that, you know, hopefully we tap into that because of that partnership and the halo effect that you get from being on a platform that is just in that many households around the world. So really excited about the potential there. And, I think for them, fakes will be a really interesting part of their YA offering. But for us, it's, and Marie really touched on this too from a kid's perspective, but it's not all that different for us. It's how do you represent those stories on screen in a way that is meaningful to, young people in Canada, be it to see themselves reflected or to see their, schoolmates or friends reflected in a way that might help deepen their understanding of the richness of their Canadian experience and whatever that might look like. And I think there's a role to play there, and it's something that we take really seriously. And it kind of does go back to who are the storytellers? Is that a voice of authority? Will they illuminate and show us something about this world that we don't see somewhere else? So I think these are the things that we gravitate towards, and I think that's, for us, part of the recipe of what could make young adult, new adult content on GEM really special. And I think the role that we can play. So that's the way that we think about it. And again, a lot of these series you're probably not going to see on a Netflix or HBO Max, and that's okay. And that's sort of, the type of balance I think we can strike between these two worlds. And those platforms are available in Canada. So it's, we're all playing in a similar playground here, but it's just, how do we stay distinct?
I think that what you're hitting on is like a lot of symbiosis in the partnerships now, and you're seeing, what you guys were talking about with creators. It's about relationships. So maybe less about competition and more about leveraging, right?
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Because we're at the Real Asian Festival, this question is, pointed of how will CBC Kids future programming reflect the Asian diaspora audiences? What is being done programming wise to retain viewership? They say, I love seeing Tony as a host. Is there a search for more Asian and BIPOC writers, filmmakers, actors, showrunners? We've sort of touched upon this, but maybe we can graze over it.
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, this is absolutely, very important to us. We've got a few shows in development right now that speak to this. We're very excited about them and the possibility, when you create a show, I think Kara as a writer director can talk about this when there's a creator coming from a community and they set up a show, it creates all these opportunities for other writers and performers, and it really builds, I think it can build community. We want you to reach out to us. We go to festivals. We try to make time to meet with as many people as possible. I know that there's an amazing group, the BIPOC Film and Television group has an amazing kids boot camp. We try to stay close and take pitches and meet people from those groups, staying close to a lot of the colleges and universities where a lot of creators are coming out of programs, whether it's Ryerson's television program or looking at Centennial College. They have the children's media program there. So many people come out of that. And so we try to stay connected with, obviously established creators, people like Sarah Haas, who's so amazing. She's really quite established in her career and is really hitting a wonderful stride as a creator. Or it's brand new people who are coming out of school or coming into the kids industry, maybe after a first career, discovering that this is really their vocation. So we're really trying to stay open to that. But please don't think of CBC Kids as some wall that you have to climb without a rope. You really just do need to reach out to us and send in your pitch. If you want to meet us, find out what we're doing, we'll meet with you. And if you don't hear back, knock on our door again, and we will make sure that somebody can meet you and see what you're all about.
That's great advice, Marie. I think too that BIPOC group is a great thing for, new creators. As somebody who was a new creator a while ago and has pitched a lot, just keep making your pitch undeniably good. Keep figuring out what the core of your story is and don't give up on it. And because things take years, a lot of the time, like Marie was saying, or Zach was saying about picking up something off of YouTube, if you can figure out a way to make some sort of teaser trailer, your own YouTube show, just as much as you can develop yourself so that you don't get discouraged by a no, because I think that's often what happens too, where it's like, oh, CBC has this wall because they said no to me. Well, they said no the first time, you just this is not an industry where you should be easily giving up because there's so many voices that are trying to get out there. Yes, Marie, you're muted though.
I just want to make another pitch. Also, like, if you're really interested in the kids business, a great place to connect with as well is the Youth Media Alliance. I'm sort of jumping a bit on the initiatives available. Things like the Youth Media Alliance have networking sessions where you can meet people like CBC people, or you can meet people from Chorus or Nelvana, different places. And they have, different mentorship initiatives. That's another great way to connect in. And also just like, don't forget, this is my one plug for CBC Kids in-house. We're frequently looking for content creators for our scripted Studio K team. We have CBC Kids News, we have digital content people, and of course, other projects. So, if you're interested in that side of things, think of us as well,
Great information. Zach, what would you like to leave our audience with vis-a-vis how to keep developing, any initiatives, any little wisdom bits?
Yeah, I mean, I think voice is something we come back to a lot, and it's something that sure is easiest to exhibit in a piece of filmed content that you then either self-release or send as a proof of concept. I would never want to suggest that that's the only way that we can understand what the voice is, but I think particularly in shorter formats, it is so paramount to really know your voice and be able to, as Kara and Marie were both just saying, like, you have to hone it and really know it. And I think, it's one thing if you're working in a half-hour sitcom, there are some familiar rhythms there, or a procedural. It's sort of like before you even click play, you know what you're getting into. I think in short formats or unusual formats, as a viewer, and again, you're scrolling through Jam and you're looking at different things, and a lot of them you're familiar with, they're traditional formats. But if they're not, the voice is the only thing that's going to really engage that person and say, I don't know what this is, but I'm so enthralled by this unique vision, and it sort of hits you over the head and you're into it. And it's sort of like, all right, whatever this is, I'm along for the ride. And there's something intangible about that. But I think finding that voice, cultivating it, really honing it, that's a really important piece of the puzzle. So that's just one thing I wanted to share. There is, more practically speaking, there is a website, cbc.ca/business and rights. There is a tab on the header nav, I think, that says one-stop workshops. And I think that's a really valuable resource that is on the CBC website right now. If I said that too fast, I'll send the link around, but it's really useful. It covers sort of soup to nuts TV production. Even if you are kind of experienced, it might just be an interesting refresher. A lot of different perspectives of people at all levels of the industry, talking about how they work. Good stuff to know.
That's great advice. And also touching on keep developing yourself, what Tony said, keep taking classes. If you have a pilot, there are classes you can take, or you have an idea for a pilot or an idea for anything. There's a lot of resources available these days. Anything else that you want, any encouraging words that you'd like to leave with our audience today, Tony?
No, you hit it right on the head over there. And at this stage, it's the easiest time to get your stuff out there. with everything that is going on. You have these cell phones right over here. These things shoot ridiculously good footage. You can shoot things yourself on TikTok, get yourself exposed, and sure enough, you'll be seen. You'll be seen. Whether it's exposure from TikTok or knocking on CBC's door, I think the possibilities are more open than it's ever been.
And I think, Tony, a combo of your and Zach's pitch of you can tell I'm in a writing room right now, where it's easy to get out there and also start honing your voice, because that's the thing that's going to make you stand out from all the noise that is out there. With that, I think it's about Samir. I see Samir's face, so I think it's about time to wrap up. So I just wanted to first, before Samir goes into it, thank the panelists. You've been really generous, and it's been a really interesting conversation. And I thank the audience for all their questions. And I think it was a good time. Samir.
Yeah, it was an amazing conversation. I really want to thank everyone for their amazing insight on how to break into kids and young adult TV in Canada. Thank you so much, Kara, for directing this wonderful conversation. And to our audiences, we hope you find this useful. And we also hope to continue our conversation on our film forum on Discord. If you aren't on Discord yet, we would love for you to join. We dropped a link into the chat, and we'll have the QR code posted up in a moment. Please scan the QR code for our survey as well and let us know your thoughts. Again, thank you so much to Kara, Murray, Zach, and Tony for today's conversation. Thank you to Carmelle and Emily, our amazing ASL interpreters, and to Lori, our awesome live captioner. And for our backhand support, thank you to Kelly, Mimi, and Joe. Just a reminder that Real Asian is still going on until November 19th. You can learn more about our festival and how to buy a ticket at realasian.com/festival. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you take care, and we hope to see you for our final panel tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.